What else haven't I shared with y'all? So I've been posting a ton of my pictures and things like that on the stories part of my channel, the community tab. So if you're into all this stuff, these random depictions of some obscure thought of how reality behaves, then make sure to go and check out the community tab on my channel, because there's lots of stuff like this on there, you know. And I have a piece of poetry talking about, you know, looking at yourself, right? And what's a true reflection of you but all that you see around you. You know, I have this headline up here on this mirror, just a mirage, right? And then I've made it like a door, right? So you can partially see that, hopefully. There's, you know, the little like panes that you might have on a door, and then this design down here in the midsection. And there's the door handle. Well, on the door handle itself, I've gave it an eye, you know, where the reflection spot might be, where the light is coming in on this like circular thing right here, to give it like depth, the depth of a sphere. There's a little keyhole, right? Well, here's the key to unlock this door. You know, just a mirage, the mirror. I call it peer review, right? And you know, people don't believe you if they don't have peer review, a second opinion, a reflection of what you are that confirms the truth and the reality of your being, right? And the things that do so are the script, the method, the maze, the how. And then I have this representation called the silverback, which means that you go somewhere and then you come back and you explain it all. So you have silverback rather than maintaining your gold, which is your lead. You know, and I have this little gemstone down here because I've been delving into this thought where, you know, it's like the circuitry of a computer, right? Storage of information, and the pathway that the light takes traversing through this maze then creates an image. You know, and how perfect the image is the rating of the gem or whatever have you, right? But if it's been cut and it's been unearthed, then it's a description script. So it's no longer in the lead, and it's been weighed and measured, you know. And up here above the sky, running out in front, you know, you have the classical telling of vampires, they have no reflection. I think that lore kind of comes into a lot of interactions with aristocracy in the past. Well, you have the common folk, right, which are like common individuals. They're common personalities. There are things that are commonly found. Well, why wouldn't a vampire have a reflection? It's because it's something unique, you know, something that's out in the lead that the common doesn't understand and can't catch up to it. And it never takes the silver back. It doesn't give you the how. It doesn't give you the method, the description, and it's never cut into stone. So, you know, its picture is never truly taken, which would be a cementing of what it is, which is ultimately, you know, like a rendering of its information, and a capturing of its essence, which is putting it in a standstill. And then I have this guy up here running towards the mirage, and then that palm tree is another story. But I'll get to that palm tree here in a second. So let's continue on here, and let's find the best way to set this dude up for the continuation of this discourse, this discussion. Hopefully it's less of a discussion and more of, you know, interesting and enjoyable information presented to you that you probably wouldn't hear anywhere else. Am I in frame? Let's see, what's in frame right now? Up to the bottom of that pane. Boom. Alright, I think I'm there. Let's find some stuff to share. A lot of my stuff is obviously geared towards the courses that I'm taking. I feel like, you know, the way that the educational system is structured, it's like this. It has to be peer reviewed, but it takes the magic away, you know, and being able to describe the how, the what. You demystify it, and you no longer this guy out in the front that has, you know, the gold or whatever have you. And so I find these very obscure ways to describe the rational thoughts that are being presented to me, but, you know, in a way that I can kind of like maintain this sense of grandeur with all of these things, you know. And I'm really trying to compose, like, you know, some sort of orchestrated network of notes that really bring forth, you know, that vibrato within the body of stumbling upon something great. That's all I'm really trying to do here. So let's get to where it is that I left off last. And, you know, sometimes there's going to be a little bit of overlap. It's probably the best way to handle this chaotic mess at the moment without me, you know, becoming so fine-tuned that I lose the mess almost. You're right? The magic's in the mess a little bit, you know, kind of what comes out of the mess. And if I organize things to the degree where I wasn't necessarily overlapping things that maybe I've already touched upon, the stress and the strain and, you know, the cutting involved might in fact kind of ruin what it is that I'm trying to touch upon here. And so bear with me if, you know, that's the case. The instrument of your horizon. The experience, bound to what you look through, the instrument of your horizon, seen by a pathway of design. Sharing glasses reinforces what glass we all look through. The labyrinth changes us as we pass through it, ultimately changing the end, as it is the instrument of our horizon. So this kind of actually goes along quite well with this depiction right on the mirror here, right? The instrument of our horizon, you know, the glasses that we put on, the words that we listen to, the book that we're reading from changes our perspective and allows us to see things from a different point of view. We may see bodies where we once didn't, organizations, you know, totally like other things that we wouldn't normally recognize because we're not looking for them, or maybe we weren't aware of them because we weren't, you know, looking from the right angle. We weren't approaching the beast from the right direction, right? And so we totally missed it, you know. Coming at it from this way, we're able to see it and catch it, glimpse it, and notice it, right? The instrument of your horizon. How's everybody doing? Comment down below how you're doing. I'd like to hear from my average of what, 11, 12 viewers. You guys are great. You guys are really great, you know. Make haste. What has been so long that by the time you get there, you're being taught by a teacher. Making haste by being so far ahead, determining the term by kicking up destiny, that those who open up their mouths spit it back out. Ordered for so long that what is pre-ordered before you have arrived. The power of the wand. What's a wand but a representative of where one's wandered? The power of the wand and the ability of the wielder to hold it together. Spelling out what's been found in order of effectiveness. To roam abroad to rooms renowned. Being known to known wherever you go. Being known to know wherever you go. The I in team. There is an I in team. As the body motions in agreement toward a goal. Who knew? Spanish too. Don't get in your own way, and in so doing reduce your span. Spanish done well entails an aspect of dead tongue, a language begotten and long forgotten. Knowing not what's going on, you lose yourself, careful not to step in your own shit. having gone far from it. The beauty of Spain and the pain from having long been gone from where you're from, for the beauty of what can be seen. Slow down and smell the roses, and for a change, be happy, healthy, healthy, and wise. Happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. Alright, we're getting there. Jesus Christ, what's the matter? Cat got your tongue as you well up inside on the verge of tears with what's before you? Jesus Christ, with such things, as you wrestle on the point where ways give way to an unbelief. The cat and karma. As a traveler through the jungle, one might come across many fascinating things. Some of the most interesting being, of course, the animals that live there. A real treat being and coming across the interaction of these creatures in their natural habitat. Going through the jungle today, we find ourselves witnessing a battle between two monstrosities, a fierce jungle cat and an enormous python we call Karma. Paths crossing, coming head to head, but from opposite directions. Each moves where the other wants, telling us that only one will move forward after it's all said and done. The cat approaches Karma and says, "I know you're not real, which is how I'll get past you, because once under interrogation your tail will disappear." The snake hissed at the jungle cat, saying, "Oh, you think so?" with his sharpened, slick, silver tongue. "I am what happens when you do. There's no way getting around that, cat." Just then the snake struck at the cat, barely missing, as the cat quickly jumped back out of reach. Growling, the cat's eyes burned wild, speaking to the snake with a deep roar. "There's no going back on what's done, Karma. No amount of apology can undo the past, so why dwell on it instead of moving forward?" While speaking, out of nowhere the cat pounced on the snake, pinning it with its paws, right at the base of its head. "Ha!" triumphed the cat, continuing to revel in the moment with speech. "Besides, if conventional karma were true, then who wouldn't be dead from it? I snap a twig on accident that trips a boar, breaking its leg days later, that is then consumed by the forest. Is it justice, Karma, that I should be accused for the death of this boar? And what creature hasn't stepped on the foot of another's, accidentally causing its demise?" While talking, the cat hadn't realized that the snake had wrapped its length of body around the cat's leg. Startled, the cat hurriedly shook off the snake, but had to release its head in the process. Back to where they both were, the snake hypnotically looked at the cat. "I was well on my way to already consuming you," Karma said hissingly. "A true achievement, given that I'm not real. Let me ask you, what happens when you do good to that which is around you? It does good back to you, yes? Well, what happens when you do the reverse? It does the reverse then to you, right? What's more real than that?" Deadlocked, the two circled each other, so entranced with the other, not even realizing they both could have moved on. The cat then let out a sharp cry. This, it seems, was no more about what it once was, but would continue, only stopping on the moment the one or the other was dead. The cat, glaring at the snake, extended its sharp claws. What's the point in even thinking about the well-being of anything? Everything is already saved within the bowels of the earth, is it not? If everything had so much worry about you as you wished, no one would be able to move a muscle. And what would life be at that point? Motionless as death for everything. And if you are what you say you are, where's the justice in doing such to everything but yourself? Taking a swipe at the snake coiled up as if to absorb the shock from the blow. The snake was backed into a corner, tasting the air with its tongue. It seemed not to like it. Upon this, the cat remarked, "Face it, your tale is over." Having nowhere to go, the snake surprisingly looked relaxed rather than distraught at the fact. "What you do is your business," said the snake to the cat. "But if your business is destruction, then when everything is destroyed, there will only be one thing left for you to finish off. Accidents happen, but what's done under your conscious design should be repaired by your own hand, and with a little help from an apology. Much can be mended if you want to let things know you at least care, if you can't afford damages done. Let me take care of all else that you are unaware of, that you can move and have fun without worry over whether or not you've done harm. But listen to when you know it will." The cat looked at the snake and blinked, purring softly. A sorry was ushered forth from the cat's lips. "I guess we both could have continued forward without any of this." The snake looked at the cat and said, "It's all right," before it slithered off into the overgrowth. The cat climbed up a tree, stealthily stepping from limb to limb, whispering to itself, "I could have finished him off with another tale or two," before disappearing off into the distance. Well, that was a fun one, right? Look out to sea. Sitting on the beach, watching the waves break upon shore. Like this is the point at which I have reached my limit. The waterline marking the frontier, the tide giving and losing small amounts of ground, both won and lost. What is this place that I have reached? Sitting here and looking out to sea. What lay beyond the shoreline? But what I am not sure of. I see a parasail, and can't help but see it as a jellyfish, tethered to the boat that tugs it attached to its tentacles. Looking out to sea, I think, maybe if I move forward, I am leaving the deep sea floor and entering the shallows? This complex of buildings I stay in is the reef that houses me, already underwater. What lays within this water that I now see? Except things that lay beneath the shallows, unknown until I once again go deep beyond the sea. Seeing things from another point of view makes the approach either done or undoing. Take yourself out of the equation and look out to see yourself out in the ocean, walking around above water while being deep beneath it. Over the event horizon, fish-eyed, I look out at warped stars over the event horizon. The other side is before me, compressed and strewn out. Still enough to watch even the clouds pass me by. I feel the land more like a ship setting sail. In unison, mixed views coming together toward a single perspective. In unison, one light feeds the eye of all who see, under the same sun. Its light grows with everyone working in unison. So I shared those ones. Here we go. So this one I'm gonna have to hold in front of the camera. All right, so this is my biomedical ethics course, talking about biology really, but I did what I was talking about before and painted a totally abstract picture of all of this. Utilizing characters from multiple different, I guess you could say, languages almost, to try and give a better representation that I felt one language itself was lacking. You know, so here we go. We were talking about the birth of a child, and so I just wrote down melding information, right? Where all it is just a melding of information, and if there's a disability, then that means that there's a non-conformity of information between the two parties involved, and there's almost like a war involved, right? And it's the war for like whether or not something is going to be birthed out of this. Maybe something won't be born out of it. Maybe something, you know, not good will be born of it, or whatever else have you. But honestly, like, I wrote down war as a simple expression of all the other pieces that I've wrote on war. Where, you know, war is typically seen as this thing which is trying to totally take control and take over everything, but war as an entity itself, outside and beyond the individuals who are involved within war, has compassion for all things, because as soon as everything falls under one total rule, then what ends up happening is war is over. And so why would war be for that? If war itself is an entity that comes out of, you know, the opinions of a multitude, which is through the diversity of beings and organisms on the planet, which is described in a healthy and, you know, a fertile landscape. So I have the connection there between disability and war, right? And then obviously there's a lot of other factors that are involved within the war of whether or not something is going to survive. And I definitely talk about that a lot in a lot of my other stuff. And so we also talked about sense of moral. And I wrote down sense of moral, and then I underlined sense of moral, because what's a moral sense? Well, I break down the word, and to have a true moral sense, it means that you're seeking more. And obviously, if you follow more, then you're going to find the pathway which provides more to your life. And obviously this pathway is going to follow, you know, a certain set of guidelines, which allows you to interact with your surroundings in a harmonious way, which then becomes a moral sense, right? Because you're interacting with things in a way which provides your life with more. And so obviously it's not going to be destructive in nature and in the way in which you're interacting with things. That's an intrinsic moral sense, right? Moral sense theory. And then we talk about genetics and GMOs. And so I have this thing up here, which is genetically modifying. It's climbed this ladder of its own construction. But then at the very top, I have paradise, because this thing up here is trying to direct the flow of information of another growing organism. But who says what paradise is and what paradise is not? And why does this thing have a right to direct the flow of this over here? This thing that's climbing the ladder, you know, it's going from point A to point B. The culmination of all these points on the ladder will eventually lead to point B. This thing up here is trying to interact and inject, code inject along this pathway of this thing climbing this ladder. And so I wrote out this equation, right? Well, B, which is the final, you know, resting point. Ultimately, nothing comes to a rest, but for the sake of conversation, we say that it does. A goes to B. Well, in B, B equals A plus all these steps on the ladder, plus a percentage, which the percentage is the interaction with this up here. And this is an equation to find out the effectiveness or whether or not genetically modified pathways should be taken, right? Well, the percentage chance involved is a direct like relation between A's like love and hate relationship with what this thing deems as his paradise, right? But then also this thing is dealing with like paradise in the sense of its viewpoints along with the rest of the world's. And this thing is built on a tower of money, really. And its influence is based on the amount of influence that it can actually have on other things within the world. And so it's actually market driven, right? If this thing gains enough funds, ultimately, then obviously that shows that the world supports its pathway, right? But, you know, then we could go into a discussion of sophists versus real philosophers, right? And whether or not the beast itself is something that we should strive for, even though it has the largest mass. You know what I mean? Like really. And so we have to debate all of those things when we're looking at this cycle right here of interaction, of growth, of birth, and of things standing on a tall pinnacle, looking down and directing the flow and growth of other things that are being culminated. Then I have this little kind of poetic phrase down here. A good mix can, when nothing is observed without addition. Now, what that means is that things have become so pure, in perfection, we're unaware of it, right? And so I write a good mix can, because that means that, you know, the mixture itself allows us to actually gain feeling once more. Nothing's pure when nothing's clear. You know, and that's kind of like this counter where if we actually don't understand, then we can't understand. And so if it's so mixed, then, you know, we're in this state of chaos and bewilderment in which nothing makes sense, and we can't even have a sensation of, you know, cleanliness or of comfort or of clarity or of understanding. And then I go on to this other tangent down here. When a mix becomes purebred through a continued normalization, right? The best example I have for this is like boxed goods or packaged goods or mixed drinks. You know, you go to a bar and it's like there are things that have a certain nomenclature to them that are mixed things, but ultimately, like the mixed nature, we're all mixed things, but, you know, it's like we've been mixed so many times to the extent of where this is purity for this thing. And any other mixture doesn't actually culminate into the name or the title that this mixture is actually given, right? Who's to say what's alien but the culture who sees aliens? The alien culture reflective in what they see, becoming as obscure as what they seek, normalized, no longer alien, grounded in reality, to be witnessed and placed. killing the alien by defining its spirit. So I have a few other things. I gotta go grab it. BRB, homie. Well, that didn't take too long, did it? All right. Let's see here. Walking toward the edge. We're always walking toward an edge, a sudden drop, a magnificent fall, a point of no return. The difference is then in when we recognize it, its steep and sheer descent before us. What does this edge signify but a choice, a path we have chosen to walk that now presents before us a change so dramatic that to continue walking that way would result in our end? What's to do? Go back as to save where we have came from, that it can once again be before us? To walk along the edge as if to flirt with it and say, I know what you are, saying as well to your past, I know what you are. Or to fly, to be then as light as air in the face of ultimate destruction, filled with the things of life yourself. Now I have another representation of, that ladder that biologist stands upon. Right? And so we see here the lab, the biolab, and it's built upon these cinder blocks, as it were, whatever. That are money, right? Which ultimately derives a support on top of the world. And I have, what's the soul on? What's the soul of the world on? And there's this constant struggle between, being in the laboratory and labor, right? I call it field work, or like in the lab, right? Well, there's this tension between the two which creates a taut rope. And I think that things themselves should strive, it's like me talking about my fitness program. It's like, yeah, if you can bench press in the gym, but it's like what's the point of doing that? Like, it's got to be translational, and that being able to be translational like that means that you're a healthy individual. And really, are you that healthy if the only things that you can do are within a controlled environment, right? And what is life? Should it only be within this controlled environment? Like, where is life actually? Is it within this controlled environment? Certainly I think that it can accentuate it, right? But where is life truly lived? Is it lived within there or out there, and I think that it's a struggle between like hard labor, almost like construction and other things to a certain degree, where you're seeing this lab work from a totally different perspective. And I could go on and on about, the fractal nature of like seeing organelles in action, where you've become this minute participant in organizing the structures of reality, right? And these tissues, these organs, these organizations, these instruments, and I think that, keeping that tension of that high place, but then also really getting down in the trenches and actually seeing what's going on and looking at the surfaces, and being on the surfaces, is what's going to result in a harmonious pathway between the culmination of the sciences that I think the world is now delving into here with the biotechnologies that are being experimented with. Here's another representation. So, right, Plato, I'm doing play on words, Plato, like tectonic plates, you know, he's like deep down, dude. He's like the sturdy, like firm foundation that the soul is on. Well, Solon's actually a family member of Plato's, actually earlier than Plato, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's deeper or whatever, you know. What's your soul on, right? Your foot, you know. And then I have another philosopher up here, Statius. What's your state of existence, right? And then I have this representation of this guy who's in a certain state, you know, and he's totally led by, you know, the representation here, which I think it speaks for itself, right? It's obviously something which has reached an ascended sort of position, you know, but Statius, obviously, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be this. Obviously, it's a broad trend, you know, like whole multitude of varieties of different states, right? Well, and then above here, I almost have like the depiction of the nose. This is the heart, and then we go up to the head, you know, the sensus. Now the census then describes the state, right? And now I've just described like a body of like a nation, right? And where we have like the rationale, and then the heart down to the foot, and then what you're on top of, you know, which ultimately we spring out of this thing. And then up here I have spacious, which I just made up. Also, I made up senses. That's not, you know what I mean? Who knows? Maybe, whatever. But, you know, like I almost think like as we're a body, there's this body that surrounds us like a shadow almost that we're, you know, playing with, so to speak. And it's like this body has a form as well. And it's like this space that surrounds this body that we, you know, think we see or whatever. So, yeah. I've been going at it though, fellas. But, you know, it's been like hella cold here. So, this is how I've spent literally like all my time indoors, you know, other than like, it's like I get my homework done, boom, you know, I get that shit done. And then it's like, all right, you know, and then I get bored in class because it's just like shit, like, I'll write some shit. Like, you guys want to hear some shit? I got some shit to say, you know. And that's why YouTube is great, you know, because it's like, there are some people that I've met where it's like I can have a conversation with. Usually it's not like up, you know, in class, because it's like the teachers, like this is their livelihood, and it's like almost like to an extent, if they saw things the way that I did, it's like, there goes their foothold, you know. It's like they would just be falling. And so, you know, it's like, I told someone the other day, you know, failing a class is almost like you failing it just as much as the class is failing you, you know, because you're saying in your failure of it that you're not willing to see it the way that the class sees it or do the work and whatever else. And it's like, you know, I don't really care. It's tough, man, though, when it's like I say before, it's like I'm going to war up there, you know. This is like for livelihood, and it's for money, and it's for like pleasantries and all this stuff, and it's tough, and especially when I see things this way, you know. But then also I have, you know, so much compassion for the different forms of life and the way that things see life, and so you know, it's hard for me to answer their questions when I have certain answers that, you know, I'm talking about like the fractal natures of being a part of like some endoplasmic reticulum, you know, going to like a warehouse and building these structures and composing bodies and organelles and tissues and whatever else have you, you know, and then it's like defining things and sentencing things and, you know, it's great stuff, and I love feeling, you know, that level of intelligence and awareness. It's like this amazing vibration where this sensation just thunders, you know, and rolls throughout your entire body, and you're just encompassed in it, and it's like you're glowing or something like that. You know, but it's like, obviously, you know, I can explain things out in a very dry manner, but it takes a lot of cooperation, and honestly a lot of energy, you know. And so there's that. And like I said, you know, it's like going to war up there. People are making their livelihoods up there in front of other people, you know, talking about things and whatever else. And there's tons of organizations on the planet that are built upon the belief systems that are reinforced through these different avenues, you know, and stuff like that. And so it's just like, oh man, well shit, I'll just go and play wall ball with myself up in the fucking racquetball courts and get a high score on how many times I can fucking bounce this shit or whatever, you know, and then I'll go and write some crazy ass story or whatever. You know, but that's cool. I have a great family and definitely people that love me, so you know, what more can you ask for? Like, really, you know, there's like that internal struggle of like, oh, you know, I want more. Well, you know, my philosophy goes like, you win too much, then you lose because you can't move. You become too fat, you know, like you become so saturated with want for more, you know, that it's like you can't move anymore because of all the baggage you've got, because of your whininess and wantonness to win everything. You know what I mean? So I keep that in check with that. So anyways, yeah.